त उनीहरू हिन्दू थिए तर हिन्दू भर्खर आएको भर्खर राज्य गरेको हुनाले सुरुदेखि नै दबाउने सताउने खैरो खन्ने खेदो खन्ने त सुरु भएन
Thus they were Hindu kings. But since they had just established their dynasty in a place which was previously ruled by Buddhist kings, they did not suppress or persecute Buddhists right away. In 1258 CE, Jaya Bhimdev sent Arunika and around 50 or 60 artists to the court of Kublai Khan when Pakpa Rinpoche of Tibet went there. Pakpa Rinpoche was a realized master of the Sakya lineage. The artists that were sent to the court of Kublai Khan were all Buddhists. Pakpa Rinpoche himself was of course also Buddhist. He went there upon the request of Kublai Khan, who had asked to be given teachings. And there Pakpa Rinpoche gave various teachings and empowerments to the Mongol people. So it was at this time that Arunika also went there with Pakpa Rinpoche. We can see from this that the persecution of Buddhists had not begun then. But from the reign of Jayasthiti Malla, that is from 1382 CE onwards, the persecution of Buddhists began. Jayasthiti Malla forced all the Buddhist monks of the Kathmandu valley to marry. He was the king and held enormous power, as by then the dynasty had already been established for about 1.5 centuries and had gained tremendous power. And thus he compelled the Buddhist monks to marry. It was after this that the practice of ordaining monks disappeared from the Newar Vajrayana tradition. It was not that Newar Vajrayana never had the tradition of monks, but rather the practice was forcefully suppressed and stamped out. In addition, a caste system, in accordance with the Manusmriti, a Hindu legal text, was forcefully instituted. For example, the Vajracharyas were made equivalent to Brahmins, Shakyas were made equivalent to Kshatriyas, etc. This practice was imposed throughout the Malla kingdom. And then in time, the Buddha Dharma practiced here started resembling Brahmanism. So how did this happen? First of all, the caste system became integrated into the culture itself. However, this is not Buddhist culture. It was forcefully imposed by Jayasthiti Malla. It did not exist during the time of the Thakuri kings, nor during the time of the Lichavi kings, nor of the Kirat kings. Although not all Kiratis were Buddhist, many were. Then, also, the Buddhists had to make a show of performing the pujas or rituals, etc., in a Hindu way, in order to avoid being caught and imprisoned. For the Buddhists here, such an oppressive situation continued for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, up to 800 years. For example, in 1520 CE, the Guru, Vandakrita Dev, had established the Mantra Siddhi Vihar. But King Lakshmi Malla, who is also called Lakshmi Narasimha Malla, and who came 5 generations later, demolished that Vihar and burnt all the Tyasafu, which is the Newar word for Dharma texts, like Pecha is the Tibetan word for it. And many generations after this destruction, Vandakirti Deva's own descendants again used the original statue of Shakyamuni Buddha and other items from the original Mantra Siddhi Vihar and established a small vihar in the same place. This still exists and is also called the Mantra Siddhi Vihar. And it is said that back then, the Guba Jews or priests of the Hiranya Vardha Mahavihar could not even go there to perform offering rituals. And thus, in order to make their offerings, they taught their children to make flower and water offerings as they were playing around in the vicinity of the Mahavihar. This happened during the rule of the Malla kings. Now, coming to the rule of the Shah kings, there was a vihar called Triratna Vihar in Turikhel, and King Rana Bahadur Shah, during the time when Bhimsen Thapa was the prime minister and Dhir Shamsher was the commander-in-chief, commanded that the Triratna Mahavihar be demolished in order to expand the Turikhel grounds. On the one hand, this completely erased a piece of archaeological history that dated back hundreds of years to the Thakuri kings, and on the other hand, it was an act of oppression oppression of Buddha Dharma. Have we ever heard of any Shah king who destroyed any Hindu temple in order to construct roads or similar? But that vihar was destroyed in order to expand the Turikhel grounds. It was located near the Mahakal temple in Turikhel. The Turikhel grounds had actually existed since a long time back. There are records which state that when Tibetans came to Kathmandu, such as Guru Marpa and others, they would set up tents on those grounds. This happened actually even before the 11th century. It was happening since back in the 8th century. The Mahakal temple has been there since the 6th or 7th century, and it is called Podang Gombo in Tibetan. Po here means Tibetan, and Dang means field, and Gombo means Lord, referring to the Mahakal there. So that term refers to the Mahakal there as the Lord of the fields, where Tibetans made camp. But Turikhel was not as large then as it is now, because some of the current area came from where the Mantra Siddhi Vihar once was. And when the Vihar was demolished, many Shastras and Sutras were also burned.
त्यसपछि आयो जङ्गबहादुर र जति पनि काठमाडौँ उपत्यकाका बिहार बही बहालमा जे जति पनि थ्यासफु यानी पेचा यानी शास्त्र सूत्र आदि धर्मग्रन्थ छन् सबै जलाइदिए भन्ने आदेश दियो.
Then next came Janga Bahadur Rana, who gave orders to burn all the Tyasafu, meaning the sutras, shastras, and other dharma texts from all the bahis and bahals, that is from the vihars, in the Kathmandu valley. And thus many were taken out and burned. Now there were no ambassadors then, but there were representative residents, and the British resident of that time, Brian Hudson, heard of this, and he went to Janga Bahadur and told him that if he did not want to keep those texts, to give them to him instead, and he would take them back to his country. Janga Bahadur agreed, and so Hudson took what texts were remaining, and these are still there in Britain. But sometime after that, several Newar Pandits requested Brian Hudson to return back at least a few of these Buddhist texts to them. So he brought back 9 of the texts. And the Navagrantha, or collection of 9 texts of the Newar tradition, since the past 150 to 200 years, are comprised of these 9 texts. But Newar Buddha Dharma is not really limited to this Navagrantha. So many of its other texts had been burned. I have already talked about Leela Vajra, who went to Nalanda to study and also taught there. And in the 11th century, the Dharma texts that were burnt at Nalanda numbered 9 million. And since Newars were engaged in exchanges with institutions like Nalanda, how could there really have been only 9 texts in Newar Buddha Dharma? But the Newars of today think that their body of scriptures includes only these 9 texts and the Swayambhu Puran. This is the result of centuries of oppression. In addition, the Newar Buddhists also had to perform their rituals in a way that resembled Hindu rituals. And doing this over a period of centuries led to it becoming a part of their culture, to make offerings and perform rituals in the style of Hindus. There are 2 sides to this matter. The negative aspect is that the methods of Buddhist worship and ritual gradually disappeared and were replaced by Hindu methods. The only difference that remained was in the names used, that instead of Ram or Krishna of Hindu Dharma, it would be Vajrasattva or another Buddhist deity. The positive aspect of this is that at least the name Buddha Dharma survived because of this adaptation. Otherwise, Buddha Dharma would have completely vanished as it did in the south, in the present-day India. Then next came Chandra Shamsher, who tore down Jana Bahal and seized many Dharma texts which are now in the National Archives. Thus, these factors are what led to the disappearance of Buddha Dharma in these regions. While Jain Dharma was also subjected to some persecution and oppression, it was not to the extent that Buddha Dharma was, because Jain Dharma was not as widespread as Buddha Dharma. And as I have noted earlier, At one time, there were more followers of Buddha Dharma than of Hindu Dharma in South Asia. So Hindus considered Buddhists to be particularly threatening, whereas Jains were only an incidental problem for them. And actually later on, Jains tended to blend in with Hindu Dharma. Since their principal view is also of Atmavad, that is, a belief in a really existing self, it was easier for them to go along with Hindu Dharma. Thus, even though they may not have acquiesced on the inside, they appear to have assimilated on the outside. The Buddhists refused to conform in that way. Because how can those who hold the view of Anatma, or non-self, assimilate with those who hold the view of Atma? And thus, because Buddhists refused to acquiesce, the Hindus resorted to killing, persecuting, destroying, burning, and other such practices, as we saw in the preceding points. This continued for 1,000 years.
र यो कारणले हो बौद्ध धर्म साउथ एसियाबाट क्षीण भएर गयो.
And it is because of this that Buddha Dharma declined in South Asia. But it does still exist. For example, there are still Newar Buddhists, and the Newar community should be given credit for having preserved their identity as Buddhists to this day, even under such hostile conditions, chaos, and distortions. And it is impossible for there not to be deterioration under such circumstances. Only a fool would claim that Buddha Dharma here has not been weakened and remains as intact as before. If that were the case, then where are the scriptures? How can there be only 9 texts here when there were 9 million texts at Nalanda? Even if we were to include various other texts that may be owned by some Vajracharyas, that would still number only 10, 20, 40, 100, or maybe 1,000. And which Vajracharya has a collection of more than 1,000 texts in their library? And even if someone does have this, or more, it cannot compare to 9 million. And if someone actually did have these other texts in their possession, they would have been published and made known of. But as it stands currently, there are only the collection of 9 texts of the Navagrantha and a few on ritual methods. So Buddha Dharma declined for these various reasons, whereas Jain Dharma survived. Because Buddha Dharma was too vast to be contained within the umbrella of Hindu Dharma, it could not be fit into it. Whereas in Jain Dharma, even though they did not really want to acquiesce from the inside, they tried to fit in outwardly. But I am well aware that inwardly, Jains are not fully happy about being part of Hindu Dharma, but they maintain that position outwardly. I will give a final example that proves that Buddhists were oppressed and persecuted. During the time of the British rule in India, when they conducted a census of the population, the Mahim sect of Odisha declared themselves to be Buddhists. The British were surprised by this, as they had assumed that there were no Buddhists in India at all. They asked them why they were claiming to be Buddhists when they had previously called themselves Hindus. They replied pointedly that because the country was now ruled by the British, the Hindus would not be able to persecute them anymore. And had they stated that they were Buddhist earlier, the Hindus would have already destroyed them a long time back. Now this happened during the British rule in India, which was quite recent. And so from this account too, it is apparent that Buddha Dharma had faced persecution, oppression, suppression, and destruction throughout South Asia. Even with regard to Nalanda, Muslims burnt the books there and killed the monks, but many archaeologists do not believe that they destroyed the vihar structures themselves. So how is it that Nalanda was so completely destroyed? Many archaeologists believe that Hindus destroyed it at a later time. I do not know how true this is, but there are archaeologists who state this. I do not, however, mean that the present-day Hindus are to be blamed for this. But this is history, and it is relevant in the context of answering the question posed here, and to elucidate why Buddha Dharma disappeared from South Asia whereas the Jain Dharma and Hindu Dharma remained. If it was only the Muslims who were responsible for Buddha Dharma's destruction in India, then a question arises as to how Hindu Dharma and Jain Dharma survived. How is it that only Buddha Dharma did not survive that invasion? And when answering this question, the issues and historical events related to destructive actions by Hindus will need to be talked about. This does not, however, mean that any blame is implicated on the Hindus or Muslims of today. Such blame should not be assigned under any circumstance, and no Buddhist thinks in this way. But these events that I have talked about did happen, and it is for these reasons that Buddha Dharma was destroyed. And it was because of the reasons that I talked about earlier that Buddha Dharma also declined in our Kathmandu Valley, a place from where the teachings had gone to Tibet. The Tibetans who were taught by the gurus of Kathmandu Valley still possess the wealth of Buddha Dharma, but nothing remains here. Barely anything remains of the sutras, shastras and tantras. Even the methods of ritual look like that of Hindus, and the abhisheks or empowerments also look to be similar to that of Hindus. But if we are to refer to the older Tyasafu, these methods that are used nowadays are not found in them. And many Buddhist Newars who do not understand and are not well learned in this even assert that Buddha Dharma and Hindu Dharma are the same. They do not know anything about this, and there is no one to teach or to clarify these matters. And when we look at why so many Newars became Theravadi, it is for these very reasons, because there was nobody who could explain the teachings of Vajrayana to their satisfaction. It is natural that questions would arise, especially among the educated, such as what is Vajrayana? How is it also the teachings of the Buddha? Where is Shamatha and Vipassana that the Buddha taught in the practice of Vajrayana, etc.? And when they were unable to get answers to such questions, they became Theravadi. In countries which are predominantly Theravadi, the teachings of the Buddha are readily available, as are the practices of Shamatha and Vipassana related to the teachings. But in actuality, these are also found in Vajrayana. It is just that the practices became weakened here in the Vajrayana tradition of Kathmandu Valley for all the various reasons that I have given. But Vajrayana is still fully extant in the Himalayan region. However, the differences in language, which in the Himalayan region is primarily Tibetan and not understood by the people of Kathmandu Valley, meant that the communication and exchanges with them have been limited. But there are well-educated and great scholars even in the Himalayan region.
जस्तै कि हाम्रो नेपालको डोल्पोको महान विद्वान डोल्पोपा तिब्बतमा अहिले पनि कदर गर्छ.
For example, the great scholar Dolpopa from Dolpa is still well respected in Tibet. He is considered to be a Mahasiddha as well as a great scholar. But other Nepalis do not know of him, even though he is renowned in the Himalayan regions. Communities like the Tamang, Gurung and Magars do not have any inkling of who Dolpopa is. So Buddha Dharma is still extant in the Himalayan region because of its close proximity to Tibet. But how did it even get to Tibet in the first place? It went there from here, that is from Kathmandu, from Nepal. It came to Nepal from India and then went to Tibet. And every Tamang needs to understand that Buddha Dharma is not limited to just what is written in Tibetan script. First of all, that is not called Lama language. It is called the Tibetan language. And secondly, those texts were translated into Tibetan from languages like Sanskrit, Prakrit, Paishachi, and Pali from here. For example, we can find the text of the Abhisamaya Lankara Sutra located in Phongkhang Monastery even today, which states that it was translated in Surkhet's Kakre Vihar from the original Sanskrit. Many such translations were made. Marpa Lochawa came and stayed here. Guru Rinpoche, who had studied at Nalanda, had also come here. Whether it is the Nyingma, Kagyu or Sakya traditions, all those traditions went to Tibet from here. And the Gelug school also emerged later from the influence of these previous schools. Thus, all four sects of Tibetan Buddha Dharma are based on the teachings that went to Tibet from here. And so, why do our Vajracharyas not possess these teachings now? Because of all the reasons that I have talked about here. And how is it that it remained in the Himalayan region, since that is also a part of Nepal? Because that region was too distant for the administration to implement their oppressive and suppressive tactics. Whereas Kathmandu Valley was the center of the administration, and thus they could easily implement their oppressive agenda to its fullest. It can be seen clearly from history that the Mallas, Shahs, Ranas, etc. all suppressed Buddha Dharma. They suppressed it wherever their administration had a reach. For example, in the area of the lower Thak River, which is in lower Mustang. That area is inhabited by the Sherchan, Tulachan, Gauchan, etc. And back in the time of the Rana regime, they were not permitted to call themselves Buddhists. They had to declare that they were Hindus. This is something some Thakalis have personally told me. And this came to be because the Sherchans there became part of the administration in the post of Subbas or clerks. They were responsible for tax collection, etc., and thus had to work with the Rana administration. And because of their proximity to the administration, the Ranas found out about their Buddhist heritage and they were commanded to become Hindus. They were told that they could no longer be Buddhists. But the administration still could not carry out extreme measures such as burning texts, etc. there. In places like Dolpa, Humla, Khumbu and Langtang, the administration did not reach those places, so no suppressive actions were taken there. But because Kathmandu was the center of the various regimes and their administrations were always located here, Buddha Dharma was suppressed here. So with this, we will end for today.
Etat sadhana punyena sarve sarvagata padam prapnuvantu jayantu cha kushalam karma vairinam janma mrityu jara vyadi swarupa varta puritvat mochayama savasatvam durgama pavasagarat.